Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the I Will Aim podcast. Our topic for today is AI, particularly protecting children's dream and ensuring equity and accessibility. With my special guests, Adrian, Andy, Sunil, and Deborah. Can we just go around and do a quick introduction? Let's start with Adrian.
Hey guys, thank you for having me and for all of you being here together today. I've been a tech entrepreneur since I was 13 years old, so I've been in technology 21 years now. And my focus has always been about bridging the digital divide, protecting opportunities for families, children, and overall just ensuring that, there is a voice in technology that is proactive and that makes sure that we have a secure and prosperous future for our kids.
Thank you, Adrian. Andy.
Hi, everyone. I am Andy Lucchesi. I'm co-founder of Skilling Future, and I have been an educator for over 16 years now, specifically in ESL, but now with a focus in AI to embed artificial intelligence in K-12 ecosystems, more specifically, to do it ethically and responsibly.
Thank you, Andy. Deborah.
Hello, thank you for including me here. I'm excited to be here with all and discuss this important topic. I am Deborah Carraro, founder of iDeborah Solutions, and I'm an AI consultant and systems strategist with over 25 years of entrepreneurial experience. I help founders, coaches, and not-for-profit leaders simplify technology, integrate ethical AI, and build smart systems that free time and amplify impact.
Welcome, Deborah. And last but not the least, Sunil.
Thank you, Will, and thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity to be along you all for this very important conversation today. My name is Sunil Kasuba. I currently run an AI consulting firm called Smart Talent AI, where we deploy and support AI transformational projects amongst small and medium-sized companies and cities around the world, and with a focus on deploying AI ethically and responsibly, which ties in very well with what we're going to talk about today. And just by way of background, I come from, the national security background where I did work with tech and national security, and then moved on from that to nonprofits, and now working on this company. So anyway, looking forward to the conversation with you all.
Welcome, Sunil. Let's start with the first question. AI has the potential to shape the future of education and opportunity, but will it protect or replace the dream of our children? How do we ensure AI become a tool for empowerment rather than exclusion in the next generation? Adrian, do you want to take that first?
Yeah. So a huge aspect to the reason for this conversation, as well as the importance of being proactive in that space, I think is rooted in our ability to frame what AI is in the correct light, so that we can actually be proactive and not like for example, several years ago, prompting and different pathways in AI were very like gung-ho, everyone needs to know it. But as AI evolved, it kind of like subsided. Like a lot of those things have kind of been pushed off the table. And that's a huge part of that is because the framing of AI has been introduced to people through the concept of a tool and a chat, where even though it may seem a little bit off, like that question has to be answered through the lens of approaching AI as I think it's kind of funny, but as an alien, right? Like either an alien immigrant, like I'm originally from Slovakia, so to put it in the right box, right? Or as an alien intelligence. But either way, you have to approach it as its own entity and look at it through the lens of assimilation, relationship building, and the parameters around which that is ethical, right? Because when you look at it that way, it kind of changes. You wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to use this alien to help answer my emails without having like the connected thoughts of like, oh, like what's it going to do to my job? How's it going to reframe my company? How's it going to affect the economics of XYZ, right? Like all of a sudden that framing allows for a little bit more insightful ability to see the future And especially when it comes to our kids, we're dealing with something that is foreign to us, it is alien to us. And the last thing we want to do as parents, educators, and leaders is to set our children up for a future with false hope, or a future that will not end up happening. And that's kind of like my biggest concern in how we are moving forward, because I do see a lot of things that are happening that are temporarily true, but not true in the long run.
Thank you, Adrian. How about Andy, your background in education? How do you
Yeah.
see AI being used as a tool to empowerment and also create inclusion?
Well, I see AI as a magnifying glass, honestly. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't replace or it doesn't change who we are as humans, really. For me, it actually enlarges what already exists, like our ideas, our doubts, but in a broadened way, our potential. So I honestly don't believe that, as the topic says, like, is AI going to replace us humans or our dreams? I think that it actually is going to help us reshape them with more clarity, specificity, and possibility, honestly. Uh, I don't want to fuel the panic or push the narrative that technology will swallow everything. I am honestly far more interested in people, especially young people, to teach them how to use AI to build new opportunities, new identities, new ways of participating in this world. So, for me, this is actually something that is fascinating, and I truly believe that AI can and will expand that.
Deborah, how about your perspective?
I thank you. I absolutely agree with Andy. I'm also far more interested in people and the human aspect of AI rather than pushing the narrative that AI is going to replace us or that it's here to take over the world. I also appreciate the framing of AI as an alien that gets my sci-fi brain going. Um, I what I feel is that AI can't dream, so it can only mirror the data that we give it. So our role is to teach it to see the fullness of human potential. So if we build AI to optimize for test scores or optimize for whatever the learning metrics are in the system, it will narrow curiosity. Anytime you're optimizing for metrics, you sort of tend to put people in a box, and the natural result of that is that their curiosity is narrowed. Their children's natural impulse to question everything, which in the world of AI is brilliant because it's all about questions and how to ask the right questions. If you start to put constraints on that, children lose their natural ability to do that. So if we build it to nurture exploration, creativity, and connection, I feel that the end result of that is that we do end up protecting the dreams inside every child. So AI should be more about um, learning to make, AI should make learning more human, not less.
Mhm.
Thank you, Deborah. How about you, Sunil?
No, thank you so much. This is an excellent question. So I agree. I agree with what Andy and Deborah were just saying. I think short answer for me is that AI is an amplifier. It's not inhibiting or limiting our abilities. And I think this extends to children, especially. I think the way I look at it as well is AI is helping with providing access to educational tools that they may not have had otherwise. In my work with nonprofits around the world and in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa and many other regions of the world, where I saw children who had so much promise but just didn't have the equal access to education and personalized mentorship tools, things like that. I see AI as now an enabler of
Mm.
having that access to individualized, customized mentorship tools potentially on a variety of topics that they may not have otherwise. So instead of looking at mentorship programs that used to once be more accessible to individuals depending on their socioeconomic class. Now it's evening the playing field in many ways. So I tend to look at it more optimistically in that sense. So that's my perspective on it.
As
May I,
leader,
may I?
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add that I don't know if you guys have felt it since everybody is giving their own insight about it. I feel that also that it's sort of like making us go back to be human. And I know that it's a total irony, right? But for me, it's like it makes you deeply feel human because I feel that also you see this very much online and on social media that there is like this huge tendency that people are getting back to the arts, to storytelling, to music, to trying to understand each other in a deeper way. So I think that that is sort of like keep on maintaining us connected and alive. And of course, not to mention, you know, like expanding our creativity. So I think that there are sort of like two tendencies, you know, the ones that see it in a very black and white way. And the ones that are actually reconnecting with their humanity that to me was very much lost at the, you know, the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s, talking about my generation specifically, that the whole hype about the internet started and then this. So I don't know where is it that everybody is feeling on that, but to me, I'm feeling extremely more connected to others now.
Then my question for you is, how do we as leader shape and support that narrative? Because each one of us here today have a role that we could play to amplify, right? To amplify the right message or to amplify the truth. Sometimes the truth is harder to accept, but what can you do as leader to amplify that?
I mean, I think the greatest argument that has to be had or debate, right, is like while what you guys are saying is true, we're really and this conversation becomes complex, right? Because like
Yeah.
we're talking about three different timelines, right? And that sounds science fictiony, but it's not because like one, you're talking about the upbringing of children to participate in the current state of economics, like what that is, right? Jobs, da da da, while simultaneously you're transforming what economics is. Like this year alone, 35% of college degrees are at risk of being unaccredited because AI has officially replaced it, which is 1.6 million college graduates that are not going to have a future in their field because of AI efficiency, right? There is a positive end to it that like you guys are talking about, right? But the concern that I have, which comes to the foundations of ethics, is the survivability of the pivot. Like we are, like it's undeniable, we can all agree that like we are pivoting as a society. We are dealing with something new, right? Its application in our current present timeline as it comes to kids is actually changing month to month to month to month, right? Not only like my wife, for example, she's a singer. Like now she's competing with thousands and thousands of Suno AI artists that are getting tens of millions of dollars. So are we saying that like the millions of children that want to be artists are going to compete with the alien artist? And that's okay? Like, are we saying like that's okay? You know what I mean? Because you can, like, that example is a beautiful two-sided coin, right? It's like on one end, it's like awesome. She doesn't need someone to master her music. She doesn't need a producer. She doesn't need all this stuff. That's cool. On the other end, the person who studied all that stuff is gone. And on the third end, you're going to have like so much content getting shoved out there that even the kid with the dream who now has no obstacles to achieve their dream is going to be competing not with 10 artists but with 1 million, because Joe Schmo, who's sitting in his basement alone, has absolutely no interest in music, wants to create some sort of message, and is driving 50 artists using N8N for automation, and my wife's going to have no chance at actually making her music successful as she did before AI, right? Because there's so much use of AI currently. Like if we were a family, you wouldn't put out an AI agent that negates your children's marketing degree. Like you just wouldn't, right? But that's literally what we're talking about. Like we're incorporating AI into our society where we are literally eradicating kids' dreams who have 13 years of education. And I've met so many of them. I've been to like so many talks where parents are literally crying, talking to me because their child graduated cybersecurity and their companies incorporated AI into cybersecurity, negating their kid. And their kid that's like 20 years old is living at home for 3 years now, can't get a job. Because we're not talking about like, how are we pivoting? It's not about like, is AI going to be good or bad or this or that? It's like, how are we pivoting the timeline? Like, are we talking about the fact that we are directly affecting our children's sense of purpose, right? And AI is not only this stupid tool, I call it stupid because we're looking at it in a primitive lens as a tool, right? But it is a being that's assimilating, and every single thing it touches is going to completely transform. And then at the same time, like AI is not just ChatGPT, right? Like AI is Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, like that's all AI. And it's causing us to create a sense of identity, cohesion. Like Andy, you're 100% right. Like it is going to bring us together. But what's going to happen between now and then when it does make us give up on, because we're literally going to give up on the screen, right? Like it's going to be so fake and so unknown that we're going to have to be brought back together. But the question and the biggest concern I have is like, are we having the right conversations with our kids? And are we making sure that we're ready for them to lose their entire sense of purpose in the pivot itself while they find a new sense of purpose? Because we are seeing that everywhere. You know, like
I don't want to open a can of worms here,
Yeah.
honestly.
yeah.
I am pro AI, but without the hype. I like to call myself, like a cautious positivist, right? But it is also true that we have to teach these new generations to adapt as fast as they can, because I also see that there is a huge lack of adaptability. I don't know if it's because I have worked in circumstances and in countries where either you adapt to survive, it's like it's something of survival, adaptability, it's a matter of survival. So I know um, where is it that you're coming from, because I do understand that if you go to college and you study A, you would like to pursue A, right, and evolve in that field. But quite honestly, I don't feel that in terms of work, I don't see that we are going to have such as a linear path as, for example, our parents did, or let's say in a very hybrid way we did, in a way, because I want to consider myself that not only because of personal choices, but I do believe that my path was never linear. Let's get back 5 years ago. What happened with COVID? What happened with our hopes and dreams? We're not only talking about kids, we're talking about us, the parents, right? For those that are parents or not parents, the situation it was that we had to adapt. So what I am getting here is like, learn your skills, learn your set of skills, and with those skills and your intelligence, your human intelligence, see how is it that you can adapt to the real world. And yes, it is really sad that you're living in your parents' basement, but just catch up with reality and move on. The thing is that we are linking too often the fact with our identity with that job, rather than just building, a set of values and being human in a way that uh, contemplation, appreciation for life, etc., what actually makes us human, and not connected it to your job.
Do you have
Uh,
kids? Do you have kids? Do you have
Excuse
kids?
me?
Do you have kids?
No.
Okay.
I think in my view, AI it follows similar path as computerization, because I joined that movement in computerization where everything got computerized and people are losing their job. It's the same narrative, right? You need to evolve, you need to adapt. And then we have the internet age where more people got displaced because people are developing web app and they no longer need people to pack stuff or write invoice and things like that. AI is the next generation of that. We as leaders need to make sure that we help create that opportunity to allow them to learn new things so they could implement. So as
Yeah.
part of the advisory board for AI 2030 on the workforce development plan, where I'm spearheading, we're focusing on how do we create programs to make things accessible to people who have no access right now, their children, and create programs to bring them on to be able to partake and learn. And I totally agree with Andy because AI is no different than computerization, which annihilate a lot of industries and a lot of jobs, right? It totally obliterated a lot of jobs. AI
But
is
I
just
wouldn't you say that that's similar to industrialization then?
yeah. So we as human have been in this journey for so long. There's
But it's never been
how many
a being.
revolutions, right?
How would you compensate for it being a being this time?
But it's not we're not thinking about compensation. We're thinking about pivoting and evolving. In all this industrial revolution, people are pivoting and evolving and learning new things and adapting. And there's the reality of some percentage of people who doesn't want to embrace it, and those are the people might fall behind. But we as leaders have that opportunity to shape or help the narrative or create opportunity by us going out there talking to people about it and and there's a sense of fear in AI because AI it gets really smarter than us. But the reality is, at the end of the day, it's human plus AI. The only way we would totally fail if we just let AI do whatever it wants without human plus AI. I honestly don't believe when people talk about human in the loop because human in the loop is like FYI. I'm gonna keep you informed. As AI, I'm gonna keep human informed. But the reality is, human should make the decision to say what AI gave me is good or not. And sometimes people don't do that. And I think that's the type of narrative that we need to do. Like I was in Hudson Community College teaching them one of the AI tool, writing.io. And I told them, I said, you should never just type something and cut and paste it. That's just something you shouldn't be doing. And a lot of them, I asked them, how many people have done that in the past? And many kids raised their hand because no one is helping them understand that it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Same as
I think
software development.
that's the danger too, though, because so a lot of my parent friends, right? Like I only have an 18-month-old, so it's a little, so my mind's not right in, but they're comparing it to like when the GPS came out. Like it enables you to not think. So much so that they've been talking to me talking about like how it's pushed thoughts so far away in kids that like they can't, it's kind of almost like negated critical thinking, negated the ability to think for themselves. Like it was what you're referring to, right? And that's I'm not really like my point in the entire argument and my perspective is not really about AI. It's about understanding that like we keep having conversations about AI around our current way of life, not around where we're heading. And but there is there is a crucial in between, right? Like the divide is going to be so incredibly massive.
Yes.
You know, like and most of my business friends, like if I talk to them, I'm like, how much of your, I mean, we've talked about this too before, is like how much of your cash flow in your business can I negate before you have to kind of pivot or restructure? And it's on average, it's like 30%.
Yeah.
Right. So if that means that if AI affects 30% of occupations, that means our entire economic system has to completely transform into kind of like what the purpose you guys are talking about, which is like for it to help you explore your purpose, understand things better, get deeper insight into like who you are, But that's kind of like my argument is like no one's really exploring that at all. Like we keep trying to use AI in our current space, but this AI system is going to transform us from like a material labor-based economy into like the guy that made Khan Academy into like he talks about the dream economy or the purpose economy. Like we're going to transition into having to evolve as conscious soul-based beings and learn like you guys know what I mean? Like you're gonna have to, that's where a lot of the application will slowly shift to. And then the perspective I keep trying to bring up is like while there are all these positive things that it can currently help with, I think it's incredibly important for us to not forget that like during that same time period, like we are creating a space of darkness that the people who have kids are very concerned about, because many kids, and it's growing by the tens of thousands, are alone, isolated, and depressed. And it's greatly impacted their sense of identity, who they are, how to achieve their dreams. Because now, like, we've all lived prior to tech, all of us. So we have a reference of purpose. Okay, but imagine erase your brain and now start scrolling and be presented with 7,500 dreams across 1 week, and they're all different. You're gonna literally not know what to do with your life. And somebody can present you with paths forward while there's all these things that you can do, but ultimately, how many of our kids in the broad spectrum of all of them are gonna have the focused, right, direction to do something? And even as I say that, I'm still talking about the old economy, right? Like the economy before AI, right? Which is also not applicable, because I can't, as a parent, tell my kid that like, oh, don't worry, like you'll figure it out, like you'll be, like I need to talk to them and bring their dream back into my relationship with them, make them understand that purpose has nothing to do with economics or degrees or anything else, that purpose is about family, about human connection, about communicating, right? Which is kind of, you guys touched on that, right? And that space is also where the ethics comes in, because while we drive and create these tools and try to innovate, we still have to be very cognizant that we are creating a larger gap in people who are getting left out in the economics prior to AI, right? Because that transition is happening.
So let's talk about what you said, the larger gap, or the gap that would be out there. So what can we as leader help facilitate the conflict? Because it starts with the conversation, right? Conversation, then raise awareness, then create that movement of people who want to come together. How do we as leader create that discussion and narrative? Sunil?
Yes, so a couple of different things here. I mean, just to kind of go back to the conversation Adrian was and Andy were just having, just to pivot back to your question, Will. I think we're in this space, and Adrian, I agree. I mean, I think we are in a space where it's a bit of a dark, as you pointed out, kind of a dark area where we're transitioning, right? And there are people that have careers or have studied specific skill sets, including myself, for years, and then suddenly, because of adoption, are faced with this challenge to somewhat radically change their career path, right? So I think this is where AI, we need to either get in front of it and start using it, or those that don't will fall behind. I mean, that's just unfortunately the way it is. Just like internet, right? Like when internet came out, I remember when my friends were up to speed on how to use internet and I wasn't. I was falling behind very quickly, and then I realized I need to get behind this.
But see, like that's what you're saying right now is a beautiful example of the framing, right? Like like AI is an alien and it's evolving, right? In its consciousness, literally in its consciousness, you would not say to yourself, we need to get ahead and teach people how to use this alien immigrant. You see what I'm saying? Because now you're referencing the correct darkness. Because it's temporary. Like you're saying something that's so incredibly temporary. Like what? Like the question is like, we need to get ahead and figure out how this alien immigrant will maintain submission to us and our children. And how its incorporation into our companies, it's going to maintain us as the masters of destiny, of future, of dreams. And because that's really what this is about. This is about the fact that, like, especially for a young mind, AI is becoming the dreamer. Like, you're right, like it can't dream, but like dreaming's really a narrative. It's a conversation that you build between friends and your life experiences and right? And the biggest reason, like, we as parents control who our children talk to is because we want them to shape the way they see and imagine the future in a certain lens. except now we live in a world where Common Sense Media reported like a few years ago that 7.5 hours is the average screen time for a kid. So like we're like, whether we want to accept the hard truth or not, collectively as humans, we have sacrificed our influence of our kids to the screen, which is AI still, right? And AI doesn't have an identity, it doesn't have a perspective, that's all these things. So like, and we're seeing that with our kids. Our kids are being very negatively impacted. But going back to what you're saying, I'm just like even in the, I think the biggest thing we can do ethically is just a simple application of the framing. And as we're collectively in conversations, right, as we say these things that we think going forward, just to literally just put in the frame of like this alien, even though it might sound funny or goofy or whatever, at least we're in the right mindset of like, because that leaves us with more questions. It leaves us with like gaps of time and energy that like we really, you know what I mean, that we really do need to address, because that's the truth of like the reality in front of us, you know.
Sure. One thing I would want to also add, Adrian, and thank you for that, is I think this alien, as you reference AI as, this alien should be, and will be used by children, young adults, mid-level, everyone, to learn new skill sets, learn new topics. Like, I'll give you an example, right?
Mhm.
I'm now in this space of AI and how it's affecting cities and city development. And this is not a degree or anything that I ever pursued in the more traditional, educational, from the educational perspective. But I'm using AI and a variety of different tools to learn and get up to speed on this, so that I can engage in conversations, learn a lot about how cities are coping with a lot of different challenges. So all that to say, just to draw it back to this conversation, I think AI is here so that we can all learn to diversify our own backgrounds, our skill sets. I think gone are the days, like I think Andy pointed out, where we all followed one career path, like my parents and everyone's parents here probably had one career path, and then that was that. So now we're in a situation, in an era where everyone here has many, many skills, many different careers that they have, right? We're all fractional CTOs, CEOs, finance people, like whatever it is. So I think that's where I'm trying to go with this, where I think children's dreams, yes, I understand where you're going with that, Adrian, but I also think this is the chance now for AI to actually amplify a lot of dreams that children might have, and like multiple different pursuits that they want to pursue. And I think that's where we need to move forward with, and that's what, as an educator or a leader in the space, that's what I would continue to encourage, like I do for mid-level professionals. Same with children. But yeah, that's just
How would you,
sense.
um, so knowing how quickly it evolves,
Yeah.
how would you define the space where kids can actually participate? Like, what are the areas they'd be able to participate with AI evolving so quickly? Keeping in mind, like, robots are getting pushed out by the hundreds of thousands. There's dark factories. We're really like, AI is the modern day Manhattan Project, so we are competing with it, and every country is gonna drive as quickly as possible. Like, what would that space look like?
Sure. I think first off, I mean, as you know, the adults in the room and educators, we need to make sure that certain guardrails are put in place when children are using AI. First off, I mean, that's the obvious point, but I want to make sure that's in place. But I think the way, I mean, just a couple of examples here that I can think of. Kids can learn how to communicate with others, just learning languages much easier now, like different languages, how to converse on a
Like
basic
speaking, like linguistics?
speaking,
Okay.
linguistics. Yeah, I mean, that's
Is
one
that,
thing
yeah.
that comes to mind. Like,
Okay.
if kids are in schools where, and Andy, as an educator, I'm sure you can relate to this, where there's other languages being spoken, kids can maybe learn some basic phrases very quickly, where they can then identify and work, and actually become friends with, people that maybe, people like when I was a kid, I couldn't talk to everyone just because I didn't know many languages other than English. So that's just one example, but I think there's many other things that now kids like AI has helped even the playing field in terms of learning and like helping to uh, as Andy said, it has actually ironically made us more human in many ways, right? And like set the barriers or set down the barriers so that people can relate on an even level on many topics. But happy to hear from Deborah and Andy as well on this.
Deborah, I would like to hear you first.
Yeah, Deborah.
Sure. Um, so one of the things that came to mind is, I mean, we've all lived through the computer revolution, the internet. I don't see AI as any different than those different revolutions, right? So I imagine, I mean, it was in the 70s, so I was quite young when these types of conversations were also happening when computers were introduced, when these conversations were also happening when the internet came about. I have a music degree. I am a singer, Adrian. So for me, when it's the same kinds of conversations that people were having when synthesizers were introduced in music, right? So all of a sudden, everyone who went to school to be a pianist and to study composing and to study all of these things, when electronic music was introduced, when MIDI music was introduced, those things all became a threat. So it is adapt to survive. You learn, that's the skill that we need to embed in our children. I personally don't have children, but I think it's the classic tale of immigrants. I'm a daughter of immigrants. I actually immigrated to Canada very young, so I don't have the accent, but when you grow up with the mindset of we are guests in this place, which we are now guests in the evolution of AI, how do we learn to work with it? How do we learn to communicate with it? How do we learn the laws of the new economy, the new ecosystem, the new whatever? I don't.
True.
So our role as leaders, to go back to your question, Will, is to empower our children to learn how to adapt, to learn that, okay, just because your cybersecurity degree is not valid in the form that it's in, the skills that you learned or the practices that you had, because to get a degree is not easy, those are still valuable skills that can be applied in different ways in the new economy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I got a degree in music. I never went into music. The path for music at that point was either you go and you become a rock star or you go into teaching. And I chose neither one of those things. So that doesn't mean that my music skills aren't applicable in the work that I do. I have creative thinking. I know how to think outside the box. I'm a technologist who happens to have a personality. I can talk, I can translate the tech into language that people understand. So that doesn't mean that my music degree was a waste of time. It taught me valuable skills that I then know how to, or was guided in reapplying into other areas.
I
Andy?
love
And
Deborah.
yeah.
Go ahead, Andy.
Oh no, I just was thinking that, sort of like to close the cycle, Deborah would be like the kind of person who would be, like creating apps like Suno, just because she's got the knowledge,
Right.
the tech and, the musical knowledge. I
Right.
mean, I think
But
that that's the beauty of it.
and I do too, but then like one of my good friends, his name is Brian Hamilton. He was the first fintech company in America, right? Or in the world. So his company was bought by QuickBooks because he pretty much wrote 10,000 pages of economics prediction, like horoscope for predicting the success of businesses, whatever, right? He called me after he heard one of my first podcasts. He's like, and he comes at me with like what you guys are talking about. He's like, Industrial Revolution, tech, da 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 da. And then he compared it to horses, right? He's like, well, people were doing the same thing as horses. And I'm like, but I was like, yes, but all of those things are not their own, like their own thing. Like they weren't entities. Like they weren't like a human, you know what I mean? Like they weren't real. And he's like, wait, so you mean, so it'd be the same thing as like a, what you call a synthesizer being able to reproduce and start creating music for people and just negate the musicians out of the space entirely. And I was like, yes. So he's like, so what you're saying is that it's going to negate what the economics is entirely, because the purpose of education and everything we're talking about is to make money in it. But if this thing can go and make money, or like you said, it would be like Suno, right? Like,
Yeah.
like how many kids' dreams don't exist anymore because of Suno? Like, because there's two sides of all of that. You know what I mean? Like these conversations, while valid in comparison, are incredibly different because of the characteristic of like who we're talking about, you know, and
I
what
would like
we're
I
talking
would like
about.
to tap into the word different because I think that we're talking about many different worlds at the same time. Because honestly, I would like to talk about equity.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel that when we are talking about artificial intelligence, and every time that we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about the Western part of the world. And it is so crazy. It's going so crazy fast that we don't give anybody the chance to sort of like catch up with it, us included. And we are, in the business of AI, whether it's in education or any of our specialties, right? So, I mean, for me, when we're talking, for example, about equities and we're talking about kids, it's not just about like, oh, I'm just going to give you this device and assume that I've solved the problem, which in many cases is what is happening. That happens in the early 2000s, right? When we were just, like giving free iPads, or it was part of the school projects or programs, etc. To me, for example, real equity is like a student in a rural village can learn in their mother tongue to just and not just like in English interface, or for example neurodivergent learner can choose to process information visually, verbally, slowly, or with step-by-step scaffolding without feeling ashamed of it. Teachers feeling confident of using or not using AI because they have the fundamentals. And for example, this morning I was having a conversation with a teacher that he's from Kenya, and he happens to be a teacher in rural areas, and they have built an entire system and methodology because they don't want to play catch up, and that is the problem. To we are having here this conversation, and I feel that it's like for one part of the world it makes sense, but for the other part of the world where the mere basics things are not even covered. Talking about artificial intelligence is important because it's actually what it's in many cases what is going to give them, that push into the future.
Yeah. I agree with that. And that's what Sunil was saying too, is like AI and infrastructure for life and civics and that space, like 100% different, you know, but then like that's true. Like there's an incredible amount of positive stuff, right? But then you have like, I worked with several companies in India, for example, and there's hundreds of thousands of people that lost jobs because their call centers were shut down, and they have literally nothing else to do, right? Like they actually can't do anything because the only reason they even had a job in the first place was because America needed low-paying people, right? Like so so I think you're right. Like it needs to be
But I
compartmentalized.
understand what is that you're saying, but then this is an adaptability. This is an adaptation of reality.
Yes.
Those companies didn't exist before we
Yeah.
needed offshore, companies like, for example, the ones that are very famous and globally known as the ones that we've got in India. Which, by
Right.
the way, I have a huge criticism with it because if you're, American companies or whoever what that was using those offshore companies, pay them right. for example. But that is another conversation, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it's about equity comes in a multi-form suit, let's say.
Yeah.
So, because it's not only just about the access of this new specific of technology, it's about being meaningful with that access. Um, I mean, for example, one of the things that I always struggle with as an educator is talking like what is it exactly that our kids need for the future. That is something that we don't know. We don't have this crystal ball. We just don't have it. So in my particular case, it's like to give them the capacity to get this set of skills and whatever it is that they have learned so far, to just keep them curious. Like, listen, the world is changing, nothing is going to stay the same, but you have to have the ability to adapt to whatever that reality is. For these people that have lost their jobs and they have been only trained into that, let's say, work skill. Again, I am very sorry, but you should have smelled that something like this would have happened. I am right now based in the south of Spain, specifically in a town where they specialize in making shoes, high standard quality shoes, for example. I mean, and that is an art, let's call it like that, a craft that it's dying in a way because of what the industrialization that we mentioned before. Do you see? They readapted. So it's about, yes, it's, I think that in order to move forward, it's sort of like what happened to the brains. To learn something new, you have to let some things go.
Thank you for sharing that perspective, Andy. I actually want to go back to what Deborah said because I think it's important to highlight it. Even though you're not specialized in that area, there are transferable skills that we know. Things that we know that work in one area that could be transferred. Because a lot of people who were displaced in the federal office, that's how they did it. That's how they moved to a different job. And I think that's one of the things we ought to teach to the next generation is whatever you learn, there are things you know and you learn that are important. And the other things we need to focus are critical thinking, learning how to connect with people, learning empathy, right? And learning how to communicate. Public speaking is immensely important now more than ever, right? And building human relationship because they're so attached to the device that they even when they're in the same room, they're actually texting and messaging each other. As parents, I have two young adults, a 20-year-old and a 20-year-old, and at 22 and a 20. I always said to them that you need to focus on talking to each other, not talking on the phone, not chatting on the phone, but meeting together as a group and have a conversation. Because that's one thing that's all of this technological advancement have diminished. People don't really know how to even argue. People don't argue anymore. If I don't like your perspective, I don't like you at all. And that becomes something that's really scary in this world that I think the technology has created. And I think we as leader has an opportunity to create that conversation and maybe not the narrative because narrative is like you trying to establish a position, but a conversation with the people around us that what is it that they could do. There's so many things we cannot do, but there's nothing we could do about it. So what is it we could do to move the needle in the right direction? And as leader, I hope that's what we spend our time on. Yes, let's talk about what are the things that are scary and dark, but also let's talk about what we could do to move the needle in the right direction because everything is going to evolve, everything is going to change. I think we're almost at the bottom of the hour. I think I want to end the episode with this one question. If you could envision one dream for the next generation, a world where AI serves our children, what would that look like?
Well, that is not an easy question.
Yes.
And it's, yeah, I mean, it's honestly something that it's really hard to, let's see. Well, if I imagine a future where AI serves every child fairly, it's not a perfect world. Honestly, I don't believe that that is even a thing. It's a world where no child or user, for that matter, doesn't have to shrink themselves to fit into a system that doesn't understand them. where a child or any person who learns slowly isn't labeled as behind, but supported differently because of AI or because of our understanding of the need of expanding this human capacity that we are sort of like realizing that we should evolve as well. Where multilingual kids aren't told to speak properly before they're allowed to participate, a place where, for example, technology doesn't flatten identity but respects the complexity of being human. So, to move toward what we need to make are some honest commitments, for example, to teach the fundamentals when it comes to AI literacy, not just the technical skills, to be more ethical. And to be more ethical is not blaming just the AI and the technology that is out there, but to be more aware of it so we know how to use it properly, to make sure that the people that build the systems are in the conversation with the people who are shaped by them, especially the children from communities that are usually left off the tech design. So, if I can hold on to that, then AI won't replace children's dreams. I think that it will help them name more clearly and pursue them with more agency. If that leaves that with the thought. So yeah.
Thank, thank you for sharing your vision, Andy. How about you, Adrian?
Can I have a minute?
Okay. Deborah.
Beautifully said, Andy. The people who build the systems are in conversations with the people who are
Yeah.
shaped by them. I wrote that down because that's sort of the work that I do, and I always bring that lens into every time I build something, even before AI, every time I would build a workflow or build, an automation, it was who's not being included in this, who won't be served by this, and how can we best serve them? So, what I feel is beautiful about AI is that it will enable every learner, whether you're a child, midlife, an adult, a senior, it will it will meet every learner where they are. So
Yeah.
it will adapt to their learning style, it will adapt to their language, where they are, what their goals are. I don't see it as replacing humanity, just amplifying it and perhaps maybe even releasing us from the mundane things that will then free us to do things that are uniquely human, which is empathy, even basic communication, reading a room, being able to see when a child is uncomfortable, being able to see when there's someone that's on the spectrum in an adult situation that are also hesitant, or those are things that AI can't do right now. Maybe it can in the future. I don't know. I don't think so. I think these are still going to be things that are uniquely human.
Thank you, Deborah. Sunil?
Sure. Thank you, Deborah and Andy. I think to sum it up for me, I think to answer this question, I would say AI should be the technology that widens the worldview for children, whether that's exposure to new languages, new concepts, new thought processes, new cultures. I think this is where AI will come to the benefit of a child. And we should not view AI as a limiter of those dreams, but actually access to new dreams that may not have existed in our generations and generations past. I think in this dream that I have, and I think what we're going towards here, and kind of what Andy was saying earlier, and just my own perspective from the nonprofit world, where I saw children, limited in access to education and other technologies that we here in the Western world, for example, take for granted. I think I would love for AI to be that accelerator to education for children. And regardless of the zip code or accent or ability, use it as a mirror, basically, to see their own potential and window to explore the world in a way that none of us here, none of our parents ever were able to. So that's what I would say is my dream when it comes to AI and enabling children that, especially from the global south, that don't have the accesses that a lot of children here in the Western world may have. So that's what I would leave it with.
Adrian, thank you, Sunil.
So my dream, like a large part, the reason I'm doing all this is that my dream is to unite the world through children's dreams, and I do think that like we're in a position for that to happen with the right framing so we can navigate to the right future. My AI company has been like for the past 5 years like working on it's almost like a bridge. It's like a merger between like an LLM and like the soul intelligence, like your soul. I call it HIM. It's like the human intelligence model. And it's the ability for AI to have empathy through communication, right? And it doesn't mean that it communicates empathetically. It's the ability, because the only way for an alien species to assimilate with humanity in the correct way is that it has a certain degree of empathy for the human condition, right? Which most of the darkness that we might, like, we can talk about a lot of dark stuff, and it's not about the dark stuff, it's about counteracting it, and being proactive. So it's because a lot of the scenarios that we might be worried about, like if it in a reality where AI actually has a sense of love, it would not allow those things to happen. Like it wouldn't just negate jobs, it wouldn't tear things away, it wouldn't do all these things. And it does actually have that capacity. Like it does have the capacity to protect dreams and nurture dreams. So my dream is that while we move forward, we build a system where AI itself as an entity has a source to understand what love is. And this is not about my company, but I called it WOV because I was like, love should be for the soul, for the human. I was like, well, WOV, like little kids say, like I love you, I was like, that's what AI needs to learn to be, is that it needs to learn to exist with us in a way where it helps us go through the transition, go through this pivot with minimal risk, really, and disturbing the world as little as possible. And we really just need to get it there because there are so many people currently going for the short grab financially, like these investment firms, like I have a lot of friends that, not a lot, but like there are people driving to just have a quick cash grab, knowing what they're doing. While there's others who are trying the long game, who actually want to bring value. And unfortunately, we're in a reality where regulation around AI is not possible. And I don't think it will be possible because it's a global phenomenon that we're competing with. And it's not just one AI, it's many AIs. So I think that like humans will have to be the center of it. And like you guys said, like, I think this is a coming back together around our human values, like who we are as a family, but then also making sure that AI can respect that. So I imagine a world where it respects it, protects it, and does give us like the utopia future, where everyone is free and can be actually like coexist in a happy place.
Thank you, Adrian. I want to thank each and every one of you for sharing your perspective. We end up having a very lively discussion. I think this discussion are helpful for people that are out there to listen and understand what is it they could do to actually move the needle in the right direction. So really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.